What is moral courage? In the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, it is the inner yearning to disregard the superficial comforts of conformity, to take a dangerous risk to defend what is right. One man stood for justice nearly 80 years ago in a prisoner of war detention camp in Germany during the darkest hours of the final solution. Roddy Edmonds was a sergeant in the American Army during World War II. After being captured, he refused to abandon his Jewish counterparts when the Nazis demanded they be turned in for immediate slaughter. He exhibited the highest form of moral courage and repudiated the ethical depravity all around him. Sergeant Roddy Edmonds displayed something that we should hope to all emulate in our own lives: courage in the face of injustice. Edmonds was taken prisoner almost immediately after going to Europe to fight for the United States Army. He was captured in the Battle of the Bulge and was sent to a Nazi prisoner of war camp in Germany. He was then sent to another Nazi war camp and subsequently given the duty to command over thousands of prisoners. The Nazis informed Edmonds that he must separate the Jewish prisoners from their non-Jewish counterparts. "We're not going to do that," Sergeant Edmonds told his men. "Geneva Convention affords only name, rank, and serial number, and so that's what we're going to do. All of us are falling out." The next morning, the POW commander lined up all 1,275 soldiers and railed, "All of you can't be Jewish." Sergeant Edmonds took one step forward and stated proudly, "We are all Jewish here." His heart was beating through his chest. The Nazi guard looked Sergeant Roddy Edmonds straight in the eye and ordered him to turn over the Jewish prisoners of war intermixed with their non-Jewish counterparts. Edmonds reiterated again that he was not required to turn over any prisoner based on their religious background, and it could only reveal prisoners' names, ranks, and serial numbers. The guard grabbed him, slammed his pistol to Edmonds' head, and ordered him to turn over his Jewish prisoners. With a loaded weapon pressed against his skull, Edmonds replied, "If you shoot, you'll have to kill all of us, and you'll have to stand for war crimes after we win this war." The guard was infuriated, but eventually backed down and let go of the prisoner. Despite his valiant actions during the war, he kept quiet about his past for the rest of his life. His son, Chris Edmonds, discovered his father's heroism while reading an article about how former President Richard Nixon bought a home from a survivor of Edmonds' POW camp. Chris reached out to him and eventually uncovered the story of his father's untold past. He submitted a file to his congressman to see if his father could posthumously earn the Medal of Honor. Unbeknownst to him was that one of his friends submitted his father's story to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Museum in Israel. After reviewing his application, the museum decided to award him their highest honor, a Righteous Among the Nations award, making Edmonds the first American soldier ever to be added to that list. The heroic actions of Roddy Edmonds not only saved the lives of an estimated 200 Jews, but also preserved the highest form of virtue during the darkest days of the bloodiest battle in the history of mankind. He refused to submit to moral cowardice and laid out his life to protect hundreds of people strictly being targeted for their religious identification. I feel a personal connection to the story of Sergeant Edmonds because my own grandmother was saved at the hands of another person with profound moral courage. My bubby was only 17 years old and just barely out of high school when her home country of Lithuania was roiled by war. If not for the assistance my grandmother received when in the concentration camp, she never would have survived. One day during mealtime, the most ruthless guard called her over. "You there, come with me." The guard took her to his office and sat her down. "When all of the other women fight for seconds during mealtime, I always see you standing at the side, refusing to join the groveling madness." My bubby nodded softly, and the guard continued, "Because you refuse to stoop to that savage level, I am going to give you a job in the kitchen." If not for the actions of this mysterious guard, my bubby would never have been able to survive the war. Even though this guard served as a tool of the Nazis to perpetrate ruthless slaughter, his kindness toward my grandmother spared not only her life, but the lives of all of her future generations as well. The Holocaust teaches us that we have a profound moral obligation to stand for what is right. We have a duty to stand up for the aggrieved, to fight for the rights of suffering, and to stand for those who cannot speak for themselves. Today, nearly 60 million people all across the world are displaced from their native homeland and lack the basic necessities needed to survive. My beloved bubby was once one of those figures, and serves as a living reminder to me to not only to remember the past, but to actively work to change the future. In a time of moral despair, Sergeant Roddy Edmonds refused to abandon his moral principles and give up on authentic justice. His courage saved the lives of hundreds of Jews, yet in the process he saved something so much deeper. Roddy Edmonds saved the dying candle of moral hope and preserved righteousness so that we all may live out our lives in a world filled with morality and virtue. Thank you.